Roll A, take A.
Hello, and welcome to the Newsfeed Talk Show Edition. I'm Andrew Alex. Today we'll be discussing the question of whether Virginia Tech is growing too fast for Blacksburg. With the recent reveal of the master plan for Virginia Tech's future, there have been mixed reactions across the board. Blacksburg has also released their 20-year master plan, which aligns with the town's hopes for growth as well as the need for expansion of campus. The most recent plan anticipates an additional 3.7 million square feet in the short term and 7 million square feet of additional space in the long term. Beyond the physical expansion of campus, Virginia Tech's plan also drastically increases the size of the student population. There will be roughly 300 more freshman students accepted than there were last year, making it a necessity for there to be enough room to hold them. However, the plans that have been released are not set in stone. They are merely ideas to help the university and the town form a shared vision of what the future of their community will look like. Today we'll be hearing from a Blacksburg Town Council member and member of the university's administration regarding their perspective on the balancing act between the future of Blacksburg and the future of Virginia Tech. We had the pleasure of sitting down with the Assistant Vice President for University Relations, Mark Ozarski. Mr. Ozarski has served as the Director of News and Information at Virginia Tech since 2003. Our second guest is Town Council member John Bush. John received a master's degree in architecture from Virginia Tech and has been employed with Virginia Tech's Office of University Planning since 2001. We are excited to have both of these gentlemen here today to speak with us about the expansion of Virginia Tech. We will be talking with Mr. Ozarski first. Mark, thank you for joining us.
Good to be here, Andrew.
So Mark, first let's talk about the construction that's going on campus right now and how that construction fits into the grand plan for Virginia Tech here. Well,
simple question, lots of different facets. There is construction going on. There always seems to be something going on. Currently, we're in the process of finishing up 3 renovations of buildings: Sandy Hall, the Liberal Arts Building, Davidson Hall. Those are 3 original buildings to campus that had a very long life and needed some revitalization. So we're working on that. Over next to Donaldson Brown, we're beginning site work for a new residence hall that will be going up there. And also this summer, you'll begin to see some other projects. One is a building that's situated between the new classroom building and the Myers-Lawson School of Construction. You'll also see projects like that are not as glamorous, but very essential. We'll be laying some pipe work for steam lines and utility lines along campus roads over the next several years, beginning this summer, to provide the infrastructure for future campus needs.
Going forward, 20, 40 years from now, this plan that Virginia Tech has laid out, can you briefly summarize what the grand vision for Virginia Tech's future is with this expansion?
Well, the one thing about the future is that nobody can predict it. But having said that, it's best when you have a plan because it can help guide you when you make decisions along the way. So the university master plan is actually a vision, it's an idea, it's a concept that takes in a tremendous amount of information, looking at what the university may be doing in 40 years, what higher education is like in 40 years, what the town of Blacksburg is going to be doing in 40 years, and what our students and our alumni and our faculty might need. Virginia Tech also, I'll just say, is not just here in Blacksburg. When we look about the future of Virginia Tech, we know it's going to be all across the Commonwealth. We're growing and increasing our presence in Roanoke right now. Last November, we talked about the Innovation Campus as it related to the decision that Amazon made to move to Northern Virginia, move its headquarters. So Virginia Tech, when we're talking about the growth of its physical campus, as well as the enrollment and the students and the faculty, it's not just a Blacksburg equation, but it's also a Northern Virginia and Roanoke equation.
Going forward, with the construction of the new buildings here on Virginia Tech's campus, what do you think the construction here on campus in Blacksburg is enough to keep up with the growing student population?
we're always working to make sure that we meet the needs of our students in terms of where they live, where they study, the laboratories. We also need to anticipate, and again, hard to predict the future, but the way that teaching will occur and the way that students will learn is going to change in the future. The best way to illustrate that is by looking to the past. It used to be simple lecture halls, just simple, sitting in front of a teacher who would talk for an hour and say all that stuff that you needed to learn and to memorize. Learning is different today. It's about hands-on. It's about laboratory experience. It's about opportunities of going to different places, study abroad, maybe going and doing a part of a semester in DC or in Roanoke, all of that. So the way that the university is going to meet the needs of the students, again, isn't set in stone, but we're trying to, as best we can with a plan, create a campus, create a Virginia Tech that will meet those future needs, whatever those future needs are going to be. And so the construction that you see, the enrollment, all of that is to try to get us to a place where, at the end of the day, a Virginia Tech education has tremendous value so that our students and our future graduates are going to go out and make the world a better place because of their Virginia Tech experience.
And absolutely, like you said earlier, you can't predict the future. And someone who's lived in Blacksburg for a long time could probably say that the town looks a lot different today than it did 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Virginia Tech has big plans for expansion in the future. How does the university collaborate with the town, work with the town to make sure that the university isn't outpacing the infrastructure that the town has here?
Well, the first thing I would say is that when you say expansion, Virginia Tech will be growing. That is sort of the fundamental plan. But the idea is to grow in different ways and in different places. Northern Virginia, Roanoke, Blacksburg, all part of that equation. But you kind of said it in your question. It's essential for us here in Blacksburg, as well as Roanoke and Northern Virginia, is to work with those communities. And that relationship that Virginia Tech has with Blacksburg, for example, is a very strong relationship. The university master plan, for example, the fundamental committee that spent 2 years working on that plan, had representation from the town. We did over 200 town hall-like meetings to share ideas, to receive input. Those meetings included members of the community, students, faculty, alumni, a lot of input. It's essential to get that input and to keep those lines of communication going. We work very closely with the town on all that we do, and we have a very special relationship with the town of Blacksburg. I can't underscore that enough, because I've worked at other universities that don't share the relationship that we have with Blacksburg. It's a special relationship, and working together, I'm very confident we'll figure out what the right combination of steps are over the next 40, 50, 100 years to get it right and to make Virginia Tech and Blacksburg a very special place.
All right, well, thank you for joining us for this first segment, Mr. Ozarski. We'll take a brief break now. Coming up after the break, we'll be joined by Blacksburg Town Council member John Bush. Stay tuned.
Bye-bye.
Hi. Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert. Oh, he took a sip of water too. That'll probably help. You were probably gonna turn down the radio too, so you could focus, right?
Probably okay isn't okay.
Right?
If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
I think the water line is what really drove it home. I blew on him.
They call me Maxie, but I prefer tripod. I was your above-average four-legged homie, and then wham, bam, minivan. Some people pity me. Now that's lame. I still run, fetch, and swim. And the ladies love me. I'm the ultimate wingman. Just don't ask me to high five.
Welcome back to the Newsfeed Talk Show Edition. I'm Andrew Alex. We just heard from the Assistant Vice President for University Relations, Mr. Mark Ozarski, about the university's plan for expansion. Now we'd like to talk to Town Council member John Bush. Welcome to the program, John.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. So first, let's talk about the non-resident population of Blacksburg. Obviously, it's growing with the university's expansion. How is the town working to accommodate that student population, that growing non-resident population here in the Burg?
Well, there's two main ways that we're trying to address the growth of the university and how that impacts the town. We have a strategic planning document that we've just released, this Downtown Strategies. This talks about creating new development within the downtown core, which is defined loosely as between where the old Blacksburg Middle School site is and where, say, Progress Street meets Main Street around the roundabout at Price's Fork. And so what this study has done is identified 7 key locations within that corridor to provide for additional density of different kinds of development. And in addition to that, the other thing we've done is talk to current student housing owners and ask them to think about creating new development where they already exist. So a lot of these older developments are from the 60s, 70s, and early 80s, and we've asked them to create more density and new development at their existing site. We think that makes sense because the infrastructure is already there, both in terms of utilities, but also Blacksburg Transit and other key things, locations close to core commercial districts and then close to the campus. So we think those two strategies will help absorb some of that new development.
Do you think the current infrastructure that the town has right now is sufficient to cover what the university has already?
Well, we're always sort of in a little bit of reactive mode in terms of how Virginia Tech plans to grow and expand. I think the town has done a good job both anticipating that, also working with the university on that expansion. So I think in most ways the infrastructure is there. I know Blacksburg Transit, which is a huge deal both for the town and for Virginia Tech, is growing. We have new buses coming on, new operators, new routes, and that's a big part of how we move people and keep cars off the road from the student population centers to core campus and then throughout campus. That's a really big deal.
So from a local government perspective, from a town council perspective, do you guys work directly with the university? What's that relationship like when when it goes to lawmaking and city planning?
Well, the town has zero regulatory authority over the state agency. And so in that regard, there are no real ordinances which address the university. They're an entity unto themselves. But having said that, key people like the mayor, the vice mayor, and other members of council serve on various committees that meet on a regular basis, so I think the dialogue is strong. And as the last guest mentioned, I think that communication has been strong and has only gotten stronger over the past 5 years since President Sands has been here. So that is key, though, that communication. We have key people like the town manager, Mark Verneal, and the town director of planning, Ann McClung, who have served on that master planning committee. So the town is quite aware of some of the issues regarding the expansion of tech and how that will affect the town. What we're trying to do is manage that growth and try to make sure that our core constituents that actually live here in town and live in the neighborhoods are not affected in too drastic a way that really affects their quality of life and their livability issues.
What would you tell someone if they asked you what you thought downtown Blacksburg would look like in, say, 20 years?
Well, I think if you look at some of our key areas downtown, say from College Avenue to the old middle school site, we're going to try to keep some of that building scale the same, but we have new development at Kent Square and at the Brownstone, which are essentially 50 to 60-foot buildings, where I think we're going to see a little bit more of that, more density in that core. We're going to see growth happening a block or two off Main Street for density of both housing development as well as some commercial development. So I think we'll see more growth and more redevelopment in the next 15 to 20 years for sure, and I think that will only continue. The other big thing that we work on and care about is housing. We have an affordable housing issue in the town already, and I think with the growth of the university, that's only going to exacerbate that issue for us. So we have key committees that are working on that, including the university committee, which is trying to talk about affordable housing and how we help make sure that new faculty, new staff, as well as people that work in the university have the ability to live in the town where they work.
What would you say is the most pivotal aspect that the town needs to focus on as the university expands? What would you say could most be improved upon from the town's current infrastructure?
Well, I think there are two things that people experience. I think that's traffic on our roads, and I think it's also the housing issue, as I mentioned a minute ago. I think the traffic and congestion in our two main corridors, we only have two corridors. We have a north-south corridor of Main Street and an east-west corridor of Price's Fork. And in key times, those corridors are becoming congested. Now, it's not the type of congestions that people may have experienced, say, in Northern Virginia or in the Tidewater Richmond area, but it is congestion that's happening within the Blacksburg experience. And to some people, you know, being stuck in a traffic jam at certain periods of the day is something they just have to learn how to accommodate, and we have to get better at that. So one of the things we're trying to think about is how to get people out of their cars into alternative transportation, into walking, biking, other bus systems, or places where we can park cars and then use alternative transportation to take some of that congestion off the roads.
Would you say that the Blacksburg population is generally united in the division, or is there some pushback with it in this community?
I think that's a little bit of both. Now, I think one thing you have to remember is a lot of people that live in the town, and I think I'm a good example, are folks that have deep ties to the university. They have degrees from the university, they work for the university, their spouses are the same way, maybe their kids went to Virginia Tech too, or alumni. So there's a deep affection and abiding love from the town and town citizens to the university, but on the same hand, that growth does affect the town, and we see that growth both in terms of student housing developments. When we have nightly hearings on student development proposals that affect town residents in their neighborhoods, we get a lot of turnout for that because people care about that. And they care about how their quality of life is affected by new development, both particularly in student housing, but also other kinds of development, commercial, say, for example. And so for them, it's a livability issue. And so we try to keep abreast of that. We're concerned about that. As a town council member, that's one of the things that I care deeply about, is making sure that people that live here in town, that have always loved living here, continue to love living here as this growth happens.
All right, well, Councilman Bush, thank you so much for joining us today. Coming up after the break, Newsfeed reporter Charity Clemitis asked students and townspeople about their opinion on Virginia Tech's expansion. After that, we will sit down with both Mr. Orzarski and Mr. Bush to hear their final thoughts for today's discussion. Stay tuned.
This is Charity Clemitis reporting for the Newsfeed. Virginia Tech's master plan includes drastically increasing the number of students on campus. We stopped by Squire Student Center to see how students feel the plan may affect campus life.
I feel like we're already kind of a little overcrowded, but I think it's a great plan for us to increase, like President Sands has a good plan of increasing more minority students on campus and having a more diverse campus, which I think is beneficial for all students. But as far as space goes, Blacksburg itself isn't that big, and I can't imagine it with like 30,000 more kids. So I think it'll be hard to like accommodate for, but in the end, I think the diversity will like enrich the campus and the student experience.
Well, I'm a transfer, so I think like incoming people, as long as like it's a mix of transfers and like incoming freshmen, I think it'll be fine as long as they can like expand the campus. But if they keep it this size, then I think it will affect things. But other than that, I think it's a great idea.
I would say like, I guess, yeah, like overcrowding would be something like that is a concern, especially since I think it was last year, like when they had to shut down like OSHAG to like renovate, and and they accepted like way too many people, and it was already chaos. So like thinking about like expanding Tech, there are already so many people here. Like I don't know how it would work to, I don't know what their like huge plans are, but like expanding student body and like campus itself, it's probably going to make things a lot more chaotic.
Now that we've asked a few Virginia Tech students about the expansion, we're going to ask some local Blacksburg community members how they feel the Virginia Tech expansion will affect life in the local community.
I grew up here, and when I was a little kid, Blacksburg was much different. I'm 30 now, so like we've gotten a lot more stuff to do, like the theater and everything, just for the students to kind of make up for, you know, stuff to do.
Blacksburg growing in general, I think it needs to do a little expanding as well, but from a business perspective, I think it would be a great idea.
Reporting for the Newsfeed, this is Charity Clemitis.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I'll be right back. Hi! You think you're probably sober?
Yeah.
But you're thinking about taking the back roads home, just in case. If you're probably sober, then why would you do that? Good choice.
Probably okay isn't okay. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
That's a full glass of wine. I'll be chatting you later.
Welcome back to the Newsfeed, Talk Show Edition. I'm Andrew Alex. We're back with Mark Ozarski and John Bush. Thank you both for joining us again today.
Thank you.
So my first question, if you guys saw the segment, there are some students and maybe even some townspeople that are hesitant about the university's expansion and what that might mean for the future of Blacksburg. What would you say to them to ease them?
I think the one thing I said before, it's so difficult to predict the future and what it will be. But what's really important, and I think John talked a lot about this as well, is that those open lines of communication to help get feedback of what people have concerns about, as well as to share information that the university or the town might have, is essential to the process. The transparency of the process is important because you're going to receive great ideas from the community. You're going to have that dialogue and exchange. You're going to have openness and trust, and that's critical to the process.
Well, I think one thing people should remember and recognize is something that I've come to learn over the years of both being a citizen here in Blacksburg and working for, say, the planning office at Virginia Tech, is the university has always changed. It's always grown, and it's always changed from its very beginnings until now. And I think we can't expect anything other than that. And so the town has, of course, existed before the university, but now the town exists with the university as the main driver, both in the town, but regionally, as well as in the whole region. And so those are good and exciting things. And I think part of that is learning how to think about what the future is and how to accommodate growth while still retaining the things which makes Blacksburg such a special town and a special place.
Going forward, right, what kind of potential do you think Virginia Tech has in the future? And what do you think that means for not only Blacksburg, but the New River Valley and greater Roanoke region as a whole?
Well, I think Virginia Tech has tremendous potential in terms of, as John was saying, from its very humble days 145 years ago to today, it has changed so much and has impacted so many people as well as the broader community. Again, what that future might be is open to the future. And again, that will be determined by the community, the region, our students, our faculty working together to achieve that future. And so, again, I'm very confident in Virginia Tech. It's become a tremendous university. It has great value to our graduates. It has great value to the region. There's work to be done. There's communication to be had. There are lots of issues in the future that we need to work together to figure out what's going to be the best solution.
I think for the town, there are two main issues, and that has to do with our tax base and has to do with the livability of our neighborhoods. As the university grows, of course, that affects our neighborhoods from permanent residents to rental housing, and we already have seen some of that in the last 20 years or so. So I think, again, open communication is important. It's also important to remember what has made Blacksburg such a great place to live and why people have wanted to live here. The town needs a strong university, both for the job base and for all the things that Ms. Ozarski has mentioned. But also, the university needs a strong town. It needs a town that's wonderful and livable, and that alumni want to come back to, and with their experiences is this rich time in their life that you only really get one opportunity to have. And so I think it's incumbent on both sides to think about both entities and how both can grow and still be what they want to be, the very best that they can be as we accommodate both vision and growth. It doesn't happen by accident. It's not just something you can just say, well, it's going to happen in the future and we'll get there somehow. You have to plan for it, and you have to think through those issues.
What do you guys think the greatest strength in the relationship between the town government, the townspeople, and the university is? And what do you think could be the most that could be worked on?
You want to start that one?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Well, I think the strengths are, again, is that we have good communication and dialogue, and that's only gotten better over the years. At least that's been my experience, and I think most people will tell you that. I think both in terms of the current council, current mayor, as well as the current leadership at Virginia Tech, that's strengthened that in very many ways. The other thing is we both realize we're in this together. We're in one boat. We've got to get to the other side together. Housing is the issue. We need to work on that. We need to work on affordable housing. We need to work on making sure our neighborhoods and our downtown is as strong as can be, because that's what people experience when they come to Blacksburg. When they come to Blacksburg, they don't talk about just going to malls. They come to experience downtown Blacksburg. And so, both from our commercial base as well as other entities, our neighborhoods that adjoin it, we have small adjacencies. So the thing is, we have to work this out together, and we have to figure out how we can both be the very best we can be.
The relationship is interconnected at the very core. We can't recruit students, we can't recruit faculty to Virginia Tech unless there's a place for them to live, there's a quality of life that they value, and there's everything from transportation, safety, roads that are good and functional, and all of that. And so we can never forget that we need each other. I mean, we are a partnership in all of this, and together we both can benefit. And that's really the thing that we can't forget. And there may be times where a change in leadership or a change in something that happens over the course of 145 years might kind of take us from one path and begin to sway us left and right. Should ever that happen, we need to go back to the base, and we need to communicate, we need to work together. That's something we can never forget or take for granted.
I'll give you guys an opportunity to maybe brag a little bit here. What do you think makes Virginia Tech, what do you think makes Blacksburg such a special place?
Well, I think the natural beauty of the region is what you have to start with. There's so many opportunities, both in the town and just generally. It's amazing that the Appalachian Trail, for example, is only 8 to 16 miles away. It's amazing that the New River is the same distance away, and the Blue Ridge Parkway, and all these kind of core natural entities that frame the basis of this region. And of course, on a plateau between the two mountain ranges forms the basis of a natural experience of how the town developed and grew. So that natural beauty and the quality of life and the livability that this town has experienced and enjoyed for so many years is a thing that I think we want to keep coming back to. That's what makes Virginia Tech's campus so beautiful. It's an stunning, extraordinary campus. And when people come here to bring their kids for the first time, they probably go, wow, this is really nice. And that's the sort of thing we want to keep in mind. Keep that beauty there, keep the livability there, keep working together to help it be the kind of place that people have experienced for a number of years.
I came to Virginia Tech 15 years ago from upstate New York. And I came here, I was initially attracted to it professionally because Virginia Tech was a university that was on the rise. And over the 15 years that I've been here, Virginia Tech has truly distinguished itself in so many different ways, whether it be Dr. Edwards' work in water in Flint, Michigan, to autonomous vehicles and drone deliveries and the cutting edge research. Quality of our students have only gone up. I mean, 4.0s are the average of our incoming freshman class. But the reason why I came here ultimately was not only the balance of that professional opportunity, but was that quality of life. It was a home that I could have here. It was a downtown. It was the beauty of the area. It's the work-life balance. I think Blacksburg and Virginia Tech, more so than many other universities, have that wonderful interconnected relationship of work and life. And we need to work very hard together to preserve that.
Awesome, awesome, thank you. Is it possible that the university could truly outpace the growth of the town, or do you think that everything's pretty much set in stone from the town side to ensure that that wouldn't happen?
Well, I want to ask that question also. We talk about growth and we're accommodating it, we plan for it, we react to it, we're proactive about as many things as we can. But I do have to wonder, both as a citizen that's been here for 35 years, as a Tech alumni, as well as a Virginia Tech employee, are there limits? Are there limits both in terms of how much the university as a land grant can both accommodate itself and be accommodated within the town? The university can obviously grow a lot more. How much can the town absorb? Those are the sorts of questions that I have in general. I don't know the answer to them.
Okay, thank you. Well, that'll wrap it up for this special edition of the Newsfeed. A big thank you to our guests for joining us today. You guys were so insightful. If you have a story idea or even a talk show idea for the Newsfeed, let us know. Send us an email at thenewsfeednrv@gmail.com. And as always, you can connect with the Newsfeed on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for watching. I'm Andrew Allen.